Good morning, Mr. Wright. Good morning, Maggie. So, what do you think is going to happen today, sir? Hopefully a good verdict. Yesterday's session didn't go so well, and then it ended on a giant mystery. That's true. And we still haven't solved a single part of it yet. Are you okay, Nick? Huh? Oh, yeah, of course. I saw that little flash of doubt in your eyes. No, that wasn't doubt. That was, determination. Yeah, determination. Why don't I believe you? It's nearly time, Maggie. You better get going to the defendant's seat. Roger, don't let me down, Mr. Wright. I'm counting on you. Hey, pal. Hey, Detective Gumshoe. Quit stressing Maggie out. She doesn't need that. How did you know she was stressed? I was watching through the doorway. Oh. You look like you lost the case already. Show a bit of confidence, will you, pal? Here, maybe this will help. Huh? Have you taken up aromatherapy too? No, it's the bottle that we found at the restaurant that I ended up giving to him. Not in a million years, pal. Don't tell me that you don't remember this thing. Come to think of it, that doesn't look like one of those aromatherapy bottles. This is the small bottle that turned up in the Tribulations kitchen a couple days ago. Wow, look at all these little bottles. Oh, they're the aromatherapy oils. He's got so many, they're overflowing onto the floor. Hey, wait a minute. There's one bottle that's different from all the others. Well, what do you know? It doesn't have a label either. So, and it doesn't smell. We finally got the analysis results back from the lab. So what is it? What is the poison? I'm afraid not, pal. It's medication. It's due to ear medication. Medication? Yeah, for ears. Topical use only, apparently. It's pretty big. For ears, you mean? Yeah, it's the medication Glenn Elg was using for the ruptured eardrum. What was Glenn Elg's ear medicine doing in the kitchen? We're gonna have to interrogate him. Or cross-examine. What about the unidentified fingerprints? Anything on that? Someone screwed up, so they had only had time to analyze the contents of the bottle. Another hour and they might have gotten something on the prints, but... It's gonna weaken its impact as a piece of evidence. Okay, pal, this is it. Make sure your defense is impregnable today, got it? Today's trial. I'm gonna expose that guy for what he's done. Or my name isn't Phoenix Wright. Because his name is Phoenix Wright. Court is now in session for the trial of Maggie Bird. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Ready and waiting as always, Your Honor. Very good. Then we'll get underway once. Yesterday, we heard the testimony of Mr. Victor Curto. He claims to have witnessed the defendant putting a powder into the victim's coffee. However, the witness's testimony was plagued with a number of problems. The mark on the rim of the cup shows the victim drank from it with his right hand. According to the old man's testimony, he picked it up with his left hand. Like this, except this is my right hand. Thank you, Mr. Godot. Furthermore, according to the witness's account, the victim was listening to the radio with an earpiece in his left ear. Yet the victim's left ear was ruptured, which made him effectively deaf in that ear. It's amazing how many contradictions a single case can have in the Hun Nick. Allow me to enlighten you, Your Honor. The world, you see, keeps turning and we must turn with it. You've lost me already, Mr. Godot. Don't let the mysteries of yesterday mystify you today. Only losers think like that. You've got to change with the times. It's one of my rules. Are you implying that you've resolved these contradictions? You know the answer to these riddles? The old guy wasn't just throwing seeds in here. He was throwing us off the scent. And today I'll prove it. Very well, let the first witness take the stand. Oh, God. And you are?
Oh, bonjour, everyone. I'm Jean Armstrong, the owner and the chef of the Tribulations restaurant. Enchanté.
Forgive me for asking, witness, but are you a woman?
Oh la la, monsieur. As you can see, I'm the perfect perky gentleman, no?
On the day of the incident, you were in Tribulations' kitchen. Isn't that right?
With you, monsieur. Everything feels right.
Fuck that. Poor Godot. Wow, he's totally unfazed. Doesn't anything intimidate this guy? Very well, your testimony, please, witness. Please tell the court what happened that day at Tribulations.
Oh, oui, volunteers?
At Tribulations.
When it all happened, there was 2 customers in my restaurant. I remember I was experimenting with new art decor that day. Like having a large meal between our tables, for example. Oui, perhaps that is what the old man was looking at. La cabra earpiece and like glasses. It would have seen everything in reverse, no?
Oh, mirror?
Oui, un grand mirror. La most enormous mirror.
That fucking stance. And suddenly the mystery disappears. Like I said, the world keeps turning, so roll with it. That would explain the coffee cup and the earpiece conundrum. The mirror would have made everything appear back to front. What the heck? It's way too early in the morning for this to be happening to me. Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination. There was no mirror. Where'd the mirror go if you had the mirrors out there? It's just stupid. And who were the 2 customers exactly?
My, of course, the young man who died. And the other not so young man.
You are referring to yesterday's witness, I presume? What about the other man Maggie says she saw at the table? Something tells me Mr. Armstrong isn't planning to disclose his existence. We need some hard evidence first before we can bring him up, don't we? I guess I'll just have to try a different approach for the time being. You're experimenting with art decor? How come I never heard about that before today?
You're not familiar with the language of interior design, Monseigneur?
Please stay on topic. Now, why didn't you tell the court about this before?
But I did just a few moments ago.
Excuse me, Mr. Armstrong. This deco you mentioned, are you referring to some sort of, decoder? Couture? Or deco, it is a style of design. Oh, deco, decor, whatever, Your Honor. He's talking about interior design, walls, ceilings, carpets, that kind of thing. Oh yes, of course, that deco.
I was trying to achieve a more effeminate look for my restaurant. I was planning the most bold remodeling of the decor.
Where are the meters? How big a mirror were we talking about here?
Oh, something about 4 meters wide and about 2 meters high.
Let's see if 1 meter is about 1 year. Holy glass in a frame, that's huge.
I was intending to install it in the ceiling eventually.
The ceiling? Was there a mirror on the ceiling? I don't remember.
No, but I decided not to go through with it in the end.
What should I do? Should I ask him more about the mirror or not? Yes. Where is it? If you really had such a large mirror in the restaurant, someone would have noticed it. But there's nothing about a mirror in Mr. Kudo or Maggie Bird's testimonies.
But...
Objection!
You didn't ask right. You have only yourself to blame for such sloppy work. What? The mirror was delivered to Tribulations the day before the incident. Really? As Mr. Armstrong testified, he was carrying out some design changes. And as it turned out, he didn't actually use the mirror in the end. This just doesn't add up. Even if a mirror was delivered to Tribulations, it doesn't prove that it was in the restaurant the day of the crime. If you want to doubt someone, try to look in the mirror. I'm sure the person looking back at you will be dubious enough. So the witness yesterday had seen the mirror victim reflected in the mirror. Yeah, except the problem with this. There's a crime scene photo, and that kind of blows you out of the water. That is most definitely not a mirror. Excuse the fuck me? Oh. No, I had time to remove the mirror after the murder occurred because, you know, that's the really important stuff. Go fuck yourself. Normally, I'd expect people to know the difference between a reflection and the real object. Not always. Sometimes it's really hard in those really nice mirrors. Normally, how does normality come into this? Actually, that is a thing. It actually is a thing. That's lame, trite, even for you. Uh-huh. Are you trying to say that if something isn't normal, it isn't possible? Is that it? Well, just because it's possible doesn't mean it's not unlikely. Or just because it's possible doesn't mean it's likely to occur. Where does that leave the porcupine-headed lawyer and the top-knot chick over there? And the ungodly cool guy with the mask over here? Walt's right. Ah! Not the hair. I do not have a top knot. Mr. Good is correct. A lack of normality is no basis for discounting an argument. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of times where that can actually come into handy, where something completely out of the ordinary is very important because it's just so unlikely to happen that it's illogical. Bien, logic's one la day. La capa earpiece and la glasses. It would have seen reverse, non? Hey, they weren't glasses, buddy. It was an HMD. Coffee cup, the earpiece, and the HMD. Let's think back over Mr. Kudo's testimony for a second, shall we? The boy was wearing this earpiece on the same side as his, of the green lens, his specs. No question, you can lock me up if I'm wrong. It was his left ear without a doubt. It would be kind of obvious to know if it's a mirror. To summarize, we were told about both the HMD and the earpiece were on the victim's left side. Now, if Mr. Kudo saw that as a reflection in the mirror, it means both the HMD and the earpiece were actually on the victim's right side. Exactamente, whatever. You see, Monsignor, now that you think about it, it's not that hard, no? Unfortunately, that's where we run into a monumental contradiction with the facts. If Mr. Kudo really did see anything in a mirror, why is that the HMD is now on the wrong side of his head? Order, Mr. Wright is correct. If the witness genuinely observed the victims reflected in a mirror, then we would expect the victim's earpiece to have been over on the right eye. Oh, bitter. Trite, you should have a taste of this bitterness. It'll calm you down in no time. Are we talking about your coffee or something completely different? You don't understand the way the witness thinks. How he thinks? You remember this, I presume? The I broke the vase sorry apology Mr. Kudo's sworn testimony? Exactly, the old man has one very grievous habit, other than throwing seeds. The more of an impression something makes, the more muddled his mind makes it. And what's the most striking about Mr. Elg? Clear, it's the victim's eyepiece. And that's my point, the old man strikes again. Mr. Elg's HMD made a big impression on the old man. I saw that earpiece and those newfangled spectacles he was wearing. Oh yes, they were both on his left ear. Do you hear? His left ear. Huh, Welch, right? That's the worst, but best impression of Kudo ever. Wow, I really thought he was old seedy for a minute there. Kudo's good. Enough. I must agree that yesterday's witness was irresponsibly rash in much of his testimony. Bad luck, Nick. Looks like the boil of a contradiction he found is just a rash. A victim can't be beaten by a handful of seeds, nor can it lie. So, what exactly was the old man looking at? Fill us in, Mr. Armstrong. Go on, tell the court we're all ears.
Oui, I can explain. Please, if you will look at the plans of the restaurant. Hello, is everything sitting comfortably? The mirror, it was in the middle of the restaurant, dividing the two halves. So there's only one seat from which you could have seen an image of the victim. That was the seat at the table next to the victim. That was where the old man was sitting. After the terrible incident occurred, I moved the mirror so it was not in the way. Fuck off. But naturally, I did not touch anything else.
I see no problems with the explanation we have just heard. From the table next to the victims, Mr. Kudo could have seen the victim in the mirror.
What a naughty little coet I am. Confusing all the men like these.
Don't worry about it. We can keep up except for the guy breaking out in a cold sweat over there. Oh, I hate that guy. Well, you said you didn't touch anything else apart from the mirror. Are you quite sure about that?
Oh, volunteers, of course.
Very well. Mr. Wright, your cross-examination, if you please. So, run this by me again. The mirror was here, correct?
Oui.
We? Really? Because I know if I were you, I wouldn't have put a mirror there. It would have been in the way. Yeah, you wouldn't have been able to really move blades. Look who's talking, Trite. Huh? You're obstructing my view, among other things. But, this is my seat in the courtroom. Tribulations' charm is that it gives you the impression that you're the only customer. Temporarily placing a mirror in that spot would hardly be in the way. In the way of waiters and waitresses. Unlike you, Trite.
I tell you, Monseigneur, the mirror was there in the middle of the restaurant. And where would that be? Oh la la, look how you lean towards me. I always attract the younger boys. Maybe I should keep you in suspense a little longer.
Mr. Armstrong, tell the court what you know at once.
I attract the older ones too, you're not handsome. Shall I tease you too?
I'm already seeing a very hot someone, so I'm afraid you'll be waiting for a long time. I bet she has mocha cream skin and a cappuccino perfume.
Yeah, and I will tell you, there was only one seat from which you could have seen. At that table was a man sitting there.
So why can you only see the victim from that particular seat?
Monseigneur, is obvious, no? If you look at our plans, you will understand. The victim would have been reflecting Lamir like this so. If so, you were sitting at the table next to him, you would see everything, no?
So that's the seat old Cedie was sitting in on that day. When the positioning happening, the old man was sitting at the table next to the victim? Why does that seem kind of odd? What's his testimony? I broke the vase of my seed. Did you move the mirror while Mr. Kudo was off calling the police?
Oui, exactamente. Sure. I carried it out of the restaurant scene.
You've moved a huge mirror like that all by yourself.
What can I say? Now I know now to pick things up, handsome.
Kudo actually laughed at something. Well, given the witness's physique, I suppose it is possible. Did you move anything else from the crime scene, Mr. Armstrong?
I look like the obliging type, non? Obliging type.
Are you sure about that? What should I fucking present, though? Because he did. Because he did tell. Fuck. Let me test this one, and then go back to Rome. Are you sure about that?
I touched nothing like Lamir.
Mr. Wright, is there something the witness said that doesn't match the crime scene? Yeah, there is. I just can't put my finger on what exactly it is. So, suffering from a case of heartburn, right?
Oh, I've just a thing for you, that an oil with golden myrrh and frankincense.
And a few drops to your coffee and voila. Enjoy. Focus, Phoenix, breathe. I need to ignore these two and just find some evidence. It's pretty strange though, isn't it? I mean, nobody mentioned anything about a really large mirror. You'd think someone would have, but Maggie didn't, and neither did old Cedie. Then the only logical explanation is that there was no mirror inside Tribune that day. And I've just got to prove it somehow. Stand next to the victim. What can I present though? That's the problem. Because he was probably sitting right across from him. He wasn't sitting behind him. This thing shouldn't be up there, which is why I want to present it on that other one, possibly. If this doesn't work, I'll present it on the other one. This piece of evidence contradicts with the testimony we've heard, Your Honor. Crime photo. Yes, this photo clearly shows something that theoretically should not exist. What on earth do you mean by that, Mr. Wright? It should not exist. Sounds like you're describing yourself, right? Now then, if the defense would please clarify its statements. Why is this something that should not exist in this order? This thing shouldn't be up. I think it's pretty obvious that this is what should not be pictured. The vase? What possible connection does this have with the witness's testimony, Your Honor? I'm telling it that there should have been no vase on this table. Because it fairly contradicts with this piece of evidence. Victor's testimony. There's only one thing that was clearly demonstrated by yesterday's testimony. Mr. Kudo broke the vase that was on the table where he was sitting. And yet, as the court can see, there is an unbroken vase on the table next to the victim. Why? Because Mr. Kudo was not, in fact, sitting at the table next to the victim at all.
Objection!
Don't be an idiot, Troy. That's impossible. That seat's the only one Kudo could have seen the victim's reflection from. Exactly. There's only one conclusion we can draw from this contradiction. There's no mirror in Tribune that day. Your testimony, Mr. Armstrong, is an elaborate lie.
Oh mon dieu!
Objection!
Don't try to confuse the court, Tried. Obviously, the witness cleaned up the vase. While the police were taking their time getting to the crime scene. He said he didn't touch anything besides that fucking mirror. Unfortunately, Mr. Godot, that doesn't quite work for me. Mr. Armstrong already testified to the contrary in his own words. I did not touch anything else except for that vase, the mirror. More coffee. Well, witness, what do you have to say for yourself?
That's devil.
I was right, there was no mirror in the restaurant that day. In light of this revelation, we return back to the original problem. Why'd the victim have an earpiece in the ear which he couldn't hear? You only get one shot in life. There's no turning back. You want to claim that the mirror wasn't there, Trite. And this problem is all yours. How do you explain what the old man saw? If I can answer this, then it'll be much closer to the truth. I can feel it. Are you going to be okay? Can you really solve this contradiction, Nick? There's more than just this one contradiction, Maya. What do you mean? There's a lot of shit. Remember when Maggie told us? There's two people. There's another man at that victim's table. And there was a sample CD on the victim's table. It all flies in the face of Mr. Kudo's testimony. And I think I know the reason why nothing in this case is adding up. He made it up. Well, Mr. Wright, let's hear your answer. Yes, Your Honor. The reason behind all the contradiction in Mr. Kudo's testimony is simple. The victim was a phony. He made a mistake. It's not going to be he made a mistake. Did he not die? No, he definitely died. Let's go with that, fuck it. The case is riddled with contradictions, yet there was one very simple answer that clears them all up. They fake the death, everyone leaves, and then they actually killed him. Sure, let's just go with that. And what is that? The incident Mr. Kudo witnessed and the incident the victim experienced were two completely different events. What? Yes, the victim that Mr. Kudo saw wasn't Mr. Glenelg at all. Oh, fuck, I just fucking realized that. No, they wanted to get him out of the fucking restaurant. What's his face included. So they sent him out so they could talk business. He left to go to call the police. And then, obviously, when she was serving coffee, gave it to him. He gave him the poison, killed him. It was imposter, a phony pretending to be Mr. O. Obviously, unlike the victim, there was nothing wrong with the imposter's left eardrum. That's how he ended up wearing the earpiece in his left ear by mistake. You're one crazy son of a bitch. Oh. Order in the court. Settle down or I'll clear the courtroom.